Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can always find great things like our medium classes. We offer a free Sunday gathering, inspirational service, and there's a medium demonstration included. It's so wonderful. We get 150 to 200 people from all over the world that join us on Zoom. And did I say it's free? It's fabulous. WeDon'tDie.com, that's my home base. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, there's a place for you to enter your name and your email address. That is for my mailing list, yes, but you get a lot of free goodies in exchange for that, including, it says the first few chapters of my book. The secret is, it is the entire book in a PDF form. Chapter 10 is about grief, and I think it's one of the most important chapters. So I don't want money to be the thing that stops you from getting good information. So that's all on my website, wedon'tdie.com. Our guest today is actually a listener of the show. She comes from Melbourne, Australia, and she reached out to me because she's got several stories that she knows will make a difference. Gemma Kyriakou is a holistic counselor specializing in grief management and a registered root cause therapy practitioner. So I think she can make a difference with us in many, many ways today. Gemma, welcome to We Don't Die.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for emailing and for listening and for being here. So you're waking up bright and early, being on this interview at 6:30 in the morning in Melbourne, Australia. I'm on the East Coast of the United States, just south of Boston, Massachusetts. You're a day ahead of us. I'm a day behind. Doesn't matter. It's no time in the spirit world. It's all good. Tell us a little bit about you. I know you've got a family there.
Yeah. My name is Gemma Kyriakou. I live in Melbourne, Australia for the past 20 years. I'm originally from the UK. I came out here 20 years ago. I was born in the UK, and quite the story. So fast forward to the right here and now. I'm a mum of two. I have two small children. They are 7 years old and 4 years old. They have been an inspiration for me to really everything changes when you have children. I think it triggers things, and you start to really go in and you do a little bit more self-development because things arise, especially when you've lost loved ones. Fast forward to today, and I am for the past 3 years, I've been really dedicated my life to holistic counseling, and especially I use a modality called a root cause therapy. So what I do is holistic therapy is you just looking at the body as a whole, basically, and specializing in grief management because it's just helping people deal with the emotions that they don't know how to process, basically. And we can do that holistically. If you need medication, there's always a time and a place for that. I'm not discounting that. But holistically, to begin with, it is we work on just the mind, body, and spirit. So just making sure that we're treating the body as a whole. So we look at everything. So environment, diet, sleep, and of course everything else that goes into mind, body, and spirit. So not just talking from going from the head downwards and everything that's in your head, because we hold so much in our bodies and we don't know how to process that and release it, and things get stored and trapped. And that's we use a process of basically it's a mixture of lots of modalities of like neuro-linguistic programming, somatic awareness, breath work. There is some talkback therapy in there as well, but it's mainly so, and then kinesiology too, to help. And then we go on like a process to help release these trapped emotions and just process underlying emotions that you didn't actually think were actually there and holding you back. So it's a really quite a deep therapy. For me, I personally, it's been amazing for me mentally, the healthiest I've ever been from doing this work. So I wanted to do this line of work to eventually, so it helps other people. I mean, when I had a big loss about 23 years ago, and I didn't have all, the internet with all these inspirational reels and, just easy access to, self-help, make you feel better kind of, in the short term. So, and even just like a grief counselor, like that just wasn't, I don't ever remember that being a thing, and it wasn't very also not accepted, but it wasn't, you'd probably be a bit embarrassed about it 20 odd years ago, whereas now it's just so much more the norm, and there's no shame or embarrassment in saying like, yeah, I'm getting therapy. I want to be a better person. I want to feel the best that I possibly can. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing this. Is this a therapy that can be done via Zoom, or do you have to be in person with a client?
No, this is all online. So yeah, you can totally look face to face. Obviously, in person is great too, because there is like an energy exchange. But saying that, um, I've done so much online, and the energy exchange, and I think a lot of people that work online as well will testify that you do get exactly the same results. But it's just comes down to some people prefer to be in person, but the majority of everything I do now is online. I think people are more comfortable with being in their own space, especially when you're going through quite big emotions, because most of the time people will cry, or if not want to. Um, and you want to be in a space that you feel safe. So being in your own home, I think people prefer the online. They can tuck themselves away in the study, and yeah, put do not disturb on the door
Do
and
people
get to it.
sign up for many sessions? I don't know, and I haven't researched it enough to know if someone comes in, is it something a few times or once a month, or how do you usually work with people? I mean, I know it depends on their level of grief and such, but I know some people they're really suffering, and there's
Mm.
not a lot of options out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, yeah, I mean, it really is individual based. So everyone grieves differently, as you'll know. It's a tough one. Individually, look, you'd ideally want 3 sessions minimum. Um, you ideally you'd have 3 sessions, and you can tell obviously from being a trained professional. You know when people need more, so maybe 5 to 10. But generally after 3, after 1 you will feel a difference in your body. And after 3, I would say you've got so much there that you can work with to kind of self-manage, and then you can just have maintenance sessions. When you feel that something's become heavy and you need to process that again, because it's not all going to be solved in 3 sessions. Like self-development is an ongoing. I would say it's a lifelong journey. Grief doesn't it's not something we're just going to get over. It's something we're going to live with for the rest of our lives. And someone said, what does grief look like for you? How does that land for you? And I'm like, well, for me, I'll probably be sad for every day for the rest of my life in a little way, but I'm also going to be embracing how beautiful it can be as well, and just knowing that how things can quickly change, and just really enjoying being in the moment with your most valued close friends and family.
I want to get into your life after death stories, but first, could you tell people what your website is and how they can find you?
Sure. So it's literally my name. So all my work is and socials is just my name. So it's gemmakyriakou.com, and then Instagram, which is like, updated every couple of days. So that is Gemma_Kyriakou. So if you just type my name, Gemma Kyriakou, you'll find it. Yeah. You'll
You're
find
one of
me.
a kind with that name. It's the same thing.
I love it.
So, what are the stories that made you so compelled that you sent me that beautiful email? Because I know
Yeah.
not everyone has a book or a website, but there's good people that have good stories. So tell us some stories. Story times with Gemma.
Story time. Okay, yeah, there's a lot, and I'll try not to go on too much.
It's okay. You can. We have time. I know you made notes.
It's all
It's all
good.
good.
I
You don't
can
want
talk.
to
I can talk, Sandra. So
talk.
there's so look, yeah, there's a lot going through here. So I will try not to go too in depth. So, but look, there's quite a few. And what I wanted to say as well to people that are deep in grief and they've lost a really close loved one, and people feel like they're not receiving signs, that is, I will say you will, and you probably are, but you're not seeing it. And because things are not as clear when you're deep in grief, you're not seeing things with such clarity. And that's completely normal. But you will, and you definitely eventually, and just give it time, because it will happen. And for myself, for me, it took such a long time. Like, my mother passed away when I was 20 years old. So probably, how long ago? There's that 13 years ago now. 23 years ago now. It's a long time. So the time goes quick. So 23 years ago, when she passed away, and when she actually passed was a huge moment, that will be the first story I'll tell you. But I didn't receive any signs from her really for a very long time. And look, I probably did, but looking back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, that probably was, but nothing as significant as what's been happening recently. And the only way I can liken that and explain that logically to myself is that time is just different on the other side. And again, I really don't think it's linear, which is another story I'll go into. So be patient, please, everyone, when you're waiting for signs to come through, because they will do. Yeah. So look, the first story is when my mother died 23 years ago. She was in palliative care. She was young. She was 49, and she was in palliative care. And I'd go up and see her every day. She was there for quite a while. So at least 6 weeks she was in palliative care. And it was just waiting, So she, I'd go up every day. And I had a 7-year-old sister at the time. She's now 30 odd now. But, and she lives in California, by the way. Anyway, no, that's another story. So I would go up every day to see my mother. Once a day, because it was just too much. It was very, very draining, very hard, very emotional. And just once a day, I'd go home, and it was just a very big blurry kind of, situation. So one day I went up, and I thought to myself, I'll go up, do what I need to do. I went back home, and I couldn't rest. I was, bearing in mind I was 20 years old, I wasn't really connected spiritually. I knew I had very good gut instinct. I knew all that. My mother would tell me all my whole life, oh, Gemma's psychic and all this. And as a young child, don't say that think you're crazy. But so, I mean, I was aware I had good, gut instinct and very intuitive. But at that moment in time, I wasn't thinking straight. So I was at home. I started to get very anxious. I'd already been up, and I thought, bloody hell, I really should be there. And it wasn't even, it was just a feeling. It was a knowing and a feeling. And I thought, I've got to go. The anxiety was literally through the roof. And I'd not had anxiety or experienced it before then. So it was a new feeling for me. So I grabbed my sister. I was acting pretty chaotic, to be honest. I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't really know where I was going either. I just grabbed the car keys, my sister, and I got in the car, drove my sister to a friend's house, because I wasn't taking her up at the time because it was a bit too confronting for her. And I drove like a maniac to the hospice. And it was just a very surreal moment where I get to the bottom of the stairs, and I had a family member up the top. Then she was like, oh, I'm really sorry. My mother had literally just passed in that moment. And I thought, well, if I hadn't have dropped my sister off, I maybe would have got there just in time. I've forgiven myself for that. That's okay. So I go up, and I was like, I knew I had to be there. Like, she was literally calling me to be there, to be with her as she crossed over. But as I go up to see her and I go into her room, I can see her on the bed, and her body is just a shell, and I can literally see her like spirit, kind of like the energy coming out of her and going up. And in that moment, that kind of did comfort me a little bit, because I was like, oh, wow. And it was at that moment as well, I was like, oh, wow, there really is something after, because I've just seen that and I've just felt that. So it gave me a little bit of comfort. in that moment. So that sparked everything, basically. Yeah. So that took me down a whole load of, like, self-development, self-discovery, intuitive, psychic, this, that, the other. And then I forgot about all that stuff for a while and went through my 20s in a blur, and went, self-sabotage and blah, 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 as you do.
As we do. What a gift it was to be able to see that. I was with my dad
Yeah.
when he passed, and it was suffering and scary and no signs of that. So I think it is a
Yeah.
gift to be that present to see. And I trust that that all happened with him, but
Yeah.
that you got to witness that is special.
Yeah. I mean, and I didn't really know it at the time either. I did, and I did. It's very hard to explain. Like, I knew what I was seeing, but I didn't process it until probably properly, a few months later, and then maybe a few years after that as well. I was just like, wow, I can't believe I felt that and saw that. But yeah, so as I say, like, I went through my 20s and probably part of my 30s being a bit, things went a bit off, I'd calmed down a little bit by the 30s, but whatever. Anyway, so look, I hadn't had any signs whatsoever, is what I'm trying to get to, or I didn't think I did. And I guess I would always kind of speak to my mother in my head. And look, this is not the only loss. There were many, many other losses with family members leading up to that time and after as well. So it's not, it wasn't just an isolated incident of one person died. Not that that matters, but I think it's important to clarify there's a lot of other things that happened. So, yeah, and also grief is not just isolated to the loss of a loved one. It's also like loss of friendships, and divorce and miscarriage and separation, and yeah, there's a lot more categories that come under grief. It's not just the passing of love, and of course, when a significant loved one passes, a lot of these other things happen. Like, it's almost like a snowball effect. So you have to deal with all of those. You have to deal with the after effects of grief, like anxiety or insomnia, and just dealing with trauma of what you've actually seen as well and experienced. So yeah, it's a bit of an eye opener, Yeah. But anyway, look, I'll fast forward to the other stories, because these are all quite fairly recent, to be honest. Well, the first one, probably 7 years ago. So, it was a long time in between getting like a real sign for my mother. And of course, I'd think about her every day, but she never used to come through. I never used to have her in my dreams or anything. And then I was trying to have a baby 7 years ago, my daughter. So I was trying to get pregnant, had a bit of a rough road with that, wasn't going as planned. And anyway, so I needed a little bit of assistance with that. And so I was trying to get pregnant, and I was pregnant with my first child, and I finally got there. I was like, oh my God, finally, it's taken a long time. I've had to go all through this, X, Y, Z. And I'd gone for an early scan at 8 weeks, and they had said, oh, everything's fine. Like, come back in a few weeks for your 13-week scan. Now, there was something in me that I don't know why. I just thought that something wasn't quite right. So I go to bed on the night after I've been to the 8-week scan, and I had an extremely vivid dream. And in my dream was my mother. She came to me. This is the first time I'd seen her or really had any validation since she had passed. So it was a long time. I had this dream. She's very vivid. She's talking about the baby that I'm carrying at the time. And she had asked me what I was going to call the baby. And I can still see everything in my head now. Extremely, extremely clear. It was a visitation. And she's telling me she agrees that she likes the name I'm going to call the baby. Anyway. And I thought to myself, I woke up the next morning and I thought to myself, there was just an underlying tone to the dream. And I thought, she's coming to comfort me. And I wonder why. And I just woke up and I was like, I'm not pregnant anymore. I just know she's come to comfort me. And I felt it instantly. I was like, something's happened. I just knew it. Really, a lot of women who have gone through this will I think will agree. They just know that something's happened. And I just thought, no, I've got to go and get checked out. So I phoned up the doctors and I got an ultrasound like literally the next day. And I said, something's not right. Like I've had this, of course, I look a little crazy. I had this dream. My mother, who's passed away, come to me in my dream, and I just know that the baby is not alive anymore. And I'd been for a scan, 2 days before that, and everything was fine. And yeah, sure enough, I'd had an ultrasound. They said that we're really sorry, the baby's heartbeat had stopped. So she'd come to comfort me, and I knew that. I knew that had happened when I'd woke up that morning, and I thought, she hasn't been to see me or visit me. She knew that I really needed to have her there and that comfort. So again, that just sparked me again of thinking, wow, like she really is there, because it was so vivid. I can still see it. And I just needed that comfort again to feel like, probably not to, really spiral, I guess, is probably, more to the point.
Yeah. And grief there. And I'm so sorry. It is a loss, even though you're a grief therapist and on all those kind of things. But I'm sure your mom's with that baby and you'll see them again.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, but the most compelling, this story I love. I mean, these are all firsthand stories, this is all things that have happened to me. And that I have had other people come through. But the main, like, really big stories of validation of afterlife has really come from my mother. And she was a spiritual person. She was, and it was very accepted in our house. It was very accepted to explore that part of you as well. She was very Christian. She was very, very religious. So, we still had all, the icons and all of that and statues and what have you. But it was also a big spiritual aspect to growing up. But this story I love because if I could get back into my WhatsApp back catalog, like I could almost prove it with dates, So this story, I was part of a mother's group at the time. My daughter, I'd got pregnant since that time, and I had my daughter. My daughter was like 8 months old, something like that. And I was in a mother's group. We planned to go for coffee. We were talking about going for a coffee, and we were planning it. So my daughter wasn't sleeping, and I had taken her to the beach to get some fresh air. And I thought, we go down there. We stand on the beach, and again, I wasn't really overly kind of spiritual at that time. I just I'd always listened to my gut instinct. Went down onto the beach with my daughter. We stood there, and I just, again, at that moment, I had an overwhelming presence of my mother coming in. Now, I hadn't obviously had a sign from her since the miscarriage. It was a long time in between again. And I had the overwhelming sense of that she was there. So I acknowledged it. I really did, because I felt it, because I was like, I'm not just going to brush it off. Like, I know that she's there. I can feel the energy, and I've always felt energy since I was, way back when I was 5 years old. I've always been able to feel energy around me. So I acknowledged it, and I thought, okay. So we got back in the car. I was hoping for my daughter to fall asleep. And we are driving around. She falls asleep, and I kept getting these really strong messages in my head of, change the cafe, do not go to that cafe, because I was planning to go to this cafe in a couple of days' time. Excuse me. And just a very strong, it was relentless. It was a relentless feeling, messages coming through, do not go to the cafe, change the cafe. Just kept going on about this cafe. So I grabbed my phone once we stopped, pulled over, put in the WhatsApp group to this mother's group. And I said to this one lady that I was meeting up with, I said, let's change the cafe tomorrow or the next day, whenever it was. Let's change the cafe tomorrow, because I don't like the coffee there. I made up some silly excuse, so I wasn't going to go into the real reason. So I said, let's change. I don't like the coffee. So she's like, yeah, okay, we'll go somewhere else. So we ended up going somewhere else. But on the day that we went for coffee, so it was 10 a.m., somebody else came in the group, and they said, oh, did you guys go to that cafe today? And we said, no, we changed it. And she said, oh, well, good job you did, because a car went through the front window of that cafe today at 10 o'clock. And I was like, well, that's the time we would have been there. And the cafe was a shoebox cafe. So our kids would have been in the front window. So
Oh
our
my
kids,
goodness.
yeah. It was really, I mean, the feeling that came over me when I heard that was like, wow, okay, these are huge signs. And I'm so glad I'm listening to these messages coming through, because it saved our children's life, because like I say, the cafe was so small, we would have sat in the window and our children would have been in the window, because they had like toys and stuff in the window and stuff like that. So they would have been there. Again, I just felt, wow, okay, so she's really trying to, she's really, really coming through here. And these messages were really, really strong. I knew it was my mother. I just knew it was. So yeah, I mean, that was saved, possibly potentially saved my child's life from listening to those messages. But yeah, there's plenty more. Should I keep going?
Oh, yes, you should. And I hope everybody who's listening is just paying attention. Okay, listen, my gut instincts are important, because our conscious mind, the left brain, if you will want to shut it down. Don't believe in that stuff. That's all your imagination. No, follow it. Follow it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once one thing happened, you really start listening. I think also spirit just like is like, I'm not going away. Like, listen to what I'm trying to tell you. Listen. And they know when you're not going to listen, because they know it's a life lesson that you need to learn. But
Not that one, though.
not that one.
Not that
That's
one. All
fine.
right. More stories, Gemma.
More stories. So this one's quite funny, but also this one actually is a funny story. So this is recent. This is literally just like not long ago. So I had a tooth extraction, right? This side. I had a tooth extraction as a molar, and it was not going to plan. It was not. It was brutal, and they couldn't get it out, and they were drilling and cutting, and it was going on far too long, basically. So I had my head back, and they're like, oh, Gemma, you're doing so well. And I was like, I am about to lose it. This is awful. So at that moment in my head, because it was about an hour in, of them digging and cutting, they couldn't get it out. And I said to my mother in my head, I said, Mum, for goodness sake, make this stop. I cannot go through this any longer. Because I thought, I was trying to say to myself in my head, like many people do when they're going through like a procedure, it's okay, it'll be over soon. But this was just relentless. Again, I was like, I can't take this any longer. It's going to cause me trauma. I said, Mum, please make it stop. Please make it stop. And I said, and whilst I'm here, Mum, I said, you never did show me that sign of the scorpion that I asked for a year ago. Because, I ask for signs. I ask for signs, every so often. I don't ask for them too much, because they're like, no. And I said, you never did show me that sign of the scorpion. So anyway, look, they actually finished up pretty quickly after that. And I go out to reception, and the receptionist, she hands me the FPOS machine to pay. And as she lifts up her arm, her sleeve comes down. She's got a tattoo of a scorpion on her wrist. And I was like, there you go.
I love that.
I love that too, because I was like, it all happened so quick. And I was like, I've been waiting a year for that scorpion. I actually kind of given up on it, thinking, oh, it's unlikely, where am I going to see a scorpion in Melbourne, or anyway, how's it going to come through? And it made me laugh, because it put a funny spin on quite an awful, procedure.
Yeah, it's traumatic having that much dental work done. It's not fun. It is not. Everybody
it is
knows
not
that.
fun. No. But look, there's actually a story I want to talk about, dimensions as well, where like time is not linear. That's a really good one, because that really opened things up to me as well. But I'll tell you this other one, to do with kids. So I have another child as well, my son, who's now 4 years old. Now, bear in mind, my mother, I have a sister. She lives in California. Shout out to her. And so my son was, he was a terrible sleeper when he was younger. He didn't like to sleep. He just wanted to be with us all the time, which is fine. I'd bring him into our bed. But, we're trying to make, like, you got to be in your bed kind of thing. Because anyway, so this is probably about a few years in. He's probably about 3 years old, I reckon. Maybe. Yeah, he's probably about 3 years old. And he's still a terrible sleeper. So I'm taking him to the chiropractor. I'm doing all these different things. I'm like, oh, come on, let's go. I'm like, what are we going to do? We looked at his diet. Like, everything's fine. He just wants to go sleep, basically, at the end of the day, which is fair enough. So I had a dream. Like, he was not sleeping, and I had a dream because I was starting to get extremely tired because, of course, kids that don't sleep, it's very tiring, right? And I had a dream one night of my mother because she always wanted a son. That's what I was trying to get to before. I got a sister, but she always wanted to have a boy. She was very vocal about that. Anyway, so when my son was born, he actually looks a lot like her, like same teeth, everything. It's uncanny how much my son looks like my mum. So I had this dream of where she's dressed up as a clown and she's playing with him at night in his cot, in his bed. And I woke up the next morning and I said, now I know what's going on. And I said, Mum, please don't do that. I know that you really, when I spoke to her in my head, I said, please don't do that. I know that you really wanted to have, a boy, and I know that he looks like you and you love him, I can tell, but I really need to sleep. And I'd said that, and I'd just spoken to her. And you know what? After that night, he started sleeping. So after I'd said, like, please don't do that. I see that you're dressing up and you're making him laugh and waking him up and playing with him. I said, please don't. I'm really, really tired. And he started sleeping like the day after. The only thing, like I will say, is we started our chiro appointments that day. And I'm like, well, is it a coincidence or not? He had one chiro appointment and now all of a sudden he sleeps. Or was it the fact that I spoke to my mother and said, I can see what you're doing. Please don't. And then he slept through. So I was like, wow, okay. Yeah. She's been playing.
Powerful. Yeah, she's been playing, and there's time to play when he's awake. And it could be a combination of the two, but you can't overlook it. I mean, there are such things as coincidences, but it's like, you got to follow that gut instinct, and you've been listening to it.
Well, that's exactly right, Sandra. And I think, the more we learn about spirit, like there really aren't many coincidences, So yeah, and this is a quick one. It's a quick fun one. So I'm part of this group online that is it's a support group for mothers that have for daughters that have lost their mothers. It's like a peer support group. Anyway, it's a lovely group. And there was a lady who put up a post saying, I've had a few signs, I think, from my mother coming through. I'm just very unsure about how to feel about it, or something along those lines. And she said, does anyone believe in that? I think she probably thought that, she didn't want to sound too wacko or something, talking about afterlife, because it's not a spiritual group. It's just a normal, it's a normal social group. So I thought, this is my area, and I was like, of course it's true. Of course there's science. This is my area. I rarely comment on these posts, but I felt compelled. And I commented on this post and I said, absolutely. I truly believe there are. And I said, I've had many phenomenal stories of my mother coming through, so many coincidences and blah, blah, blah. So yes, I truly believe that, your mother is around. And somebody liked my comment within like 5 seconds and their name was Marilyn, and my mother's name is Marilyn. So I was like, see? And I said to that person, I said, my mother's name is Marilyn. It's funny that you actually, liked it. And she was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God. Because again, it's not a coincidence, you know, because I was saying to this woman, like, your mother is around, like I truly believe like she's around. And then, you know, that happened. So I was all these little things. I mean, there's so many of those stories. I mean, this is just the ones I remember that I've written down that I can relate to people, to give people some comfort of knowing that there is the energy and the spirit of your loved ones.
That's why it's important to write these down. Not that I always do, but our human brain wants to focus on what's wrong in the future or guilt from the past, and it doesn't pay attention to the miracles. So sometimes when we're down and we can look down and we say, hey, yeah, this happened, this happened, this happened. There's more to life than meets the eye. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. There's these are not related to my mother. There's a few stories here not related to my mum, but these are, the one I want to talk about was the dimensions and time is not linear. And when people talk about, oh, you know, I don't think time is linear, it always sounds a bit like, oh God, what are they talking about? Until you kind of experience something and you think, oh my God, it's so not. How can it be? This has happened. Like, so for me, I've done a lot of self-development over the last few years, and trusting myself and trusting gut instincts and trusting messages that have come through, and knowing how to interpret them, basically. I mean, that was probably the most important thing, because I always go to like worst case scenario. You know, I'm like, oh my God, something bad's going to happen, when actual fact it's just like, no, it just could be a little bit of conflict or whatever. I'll jump to the worst case scenario, but that's just the trauma that I hold and that I continuously work through. So this is probably about a year ago. My daughter, she goes to Greek school in I don't know if you've got that in the States, but oh no, I think you do. In Australia, for anyone that's got a Greek background, you can take your children to like a Greek school, like it's just a few hours on like a Saturday or a night time, and they can learn, you know, Greek. And so my daughter attends, and we were going up on the Saturday as usual about a year ago, and I had a very, very overwhelming feeling of that there's going to be a lockdown situation and that I shouldn't be sending her to the school. And I thought, wow, okay. It was very strong again. The feeling was extremely strong. And I thought, well, what do I do? Do I not send her, or do I go against everything I believe and not trust myself and just send her? Like this potentially could be, because it's a big school that they do the classes in. And I thought, there's a lot of crazy things that have been happening in the world, and in Melbourne and Australia, there's been a lot of attacks. So yes, that does play into the anxiety, especially when you're dropping your child off somewhere. Of course, for me, I do think of these scenarios. But this was an overwhelming feeling. I thought, do I send her? I mean, I was like, no. Surely I am just being anxious because of all the things that have happened recently. There was a big thing that happened in Sydney in the shopping centre with a knife attack, which killed many people. It was very, very tragic. So that was playing on my mind as well. But so we're on the way, and I said to my husband, I don't know if we should send her in. And I just put it down to anxiety. And I said, I feel like there's going to be a lockdown situation. I kept getting these messages, these images through of like a man running through the school with something. Anyway, and I thought to myself, no, it's okay. I'm just being anxious. I took her up I dropped her off and at 9 a.m. and I thought we'd pick her up at midday. And I thought if I can just get to 11 a.m., then I'll know everything is okay. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. Anyway, I dropped her off. And I was at home, and I was constantly just waiting on my phone, expecting something bad to happen. But that's just my brain going straight to worst case scenario. And at 11:41, I get an email from the Greek school saying, just to inform parents, we've had a lockdown trial today. And I literally nearly fell over. They've just been like, they've been doing a, what do you call it? A scenario just in case anything bad happens. I can't remember what they call it. I've lost for words. But so we've had a lockdown. We've had a lockdown scenario today, so the children, are aware of what to do if this ever happens. Blah blah blah. So don't be alarmed if they come back telling you stories of, what we've sort of done today. And I honestly nearly fell over. I was like, I knew it, and I knew I listened, trusting myself 100%. But obviously knowing that it's not always worst case scenario. They were just having a
kind of a practice in case
practice.
that
That's the
happens.
word I'm
Yeah.
looking for. Yeah, they're having a practice. So I got up to the school and I said, and I looked through my emails thinking, if I had any other emails telling me that there's going to be a practice lockdown, because this is freaking me out. It really is. And there was nothing. So when I get to the school, I pick up my daughter and I said to her teacher, I said, did you send out any emails telling us about this practice? She said, no, we don't, because it frightens people, and then parents don't send their children to school because they worry that it's going to frighten them, or they just, yeah. So she goes, we never tell them beforehand, we tell you after. And I was like, well, yeah, okay. Like, I know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that just goes, and I thought to myself, well, how do you explain that? And I just thought to myself, this is different dimensions where you can see things that have already played out. And then it's a lot for the mind to really kind of try and process.
And how do you really? I know that it said so much that time is an illusion, right? And that makes sense and it doesn't make sense. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to verbalize this as much as I'd like to. But let me try anyways. Here on earth, we're in it. We're in it, right? So there is past, there is future, there's the now. I mean, I know future is not yet written and all that stuff, but anyways, they say people that have passed, or when we tap into that higher perspective, that we can often tap into that, right? And I don't think that future is 100% written. I think there's free will. I think things could tend to happen. But someone had said, imagine a big rock, a big boulder, and that's like our life, and we're just one little amoeba or a little cell or whatever in there, right? And that represents our whole lifetime, past, present, future. I mean, it's all there. You can see it. It's within that rock. But of course, there's us looking down on the rock. So we're outside of that. And as basic as that is, it kind of helps me go, okay, I kind of understand just a teeny bit that there must be some kind of field outside of our own perception, that there's more that can be tapped into. I am hoping, really, when we cross over, that we figure it out. Like, oh, yeah, this is how it happens. Of course, this is how you're communicating. Of course, this is how you came into my dream. Oh, that makes perfect sense. But I don't think here on earth we have the brain capacity, nor do I think we're meant to know. Because see, this is, what I say, that life is an education for the soul, and we're here to learn and serve and make a difference and love and forgive and all that good stuff. If we knew the big picture all the time, it would just take away that game of life. So I don't think we're meant to know all of this, but I think like the times that your mom has visited and told the big things, like don't go to that cafe, we need some divine intervention at some points in our life. So it's nice to hear that.
Oh, I totally believe in divine intervention, divine timing. I'm a massive believer in that. And I think you're right. We're not supposed to know, because this is almost like our life on this earth is just like a blip. It's like a blackout for us. We'll go back and be like, oh, wow, like, we passed out for a little while there. And wow, what did we learn? Who knows? But what I do know is that there's been way too many coincidences. I don't believe in coincidence now. I really don't. And there's way too many signs and messages and feelings and that I've personally felt that I can't ignore. And I know for sure. I mean, I don't know what happens, obviously, but I know what's happened from energy coming from other dimensions or the other side, that there's definitely something else. I mean, there can't not be. But this is a really Oh, this is a lovely story. And this is another story that gets me into also a topic that I've been delving into, which is extremely complicated because I am not a scientist. And but it's like science and spirituality kind of like coming together, and that quantum entanglement. So, it's literally mind blowing. But I feel like this is like you're connected to people in the way of. So I have a friend of mine that I've grown up with since I was 5 years old. I've known have a very good friend of mine. She lives in the UK. I live in Australia. I've been here 20 years. Now we are like sisters. We argue. We're very natural with each other. We can say whatever we want. We fall out, whatever. Like family. We've been through a lot together in our lives, like a lot. So we did fall out for a few years about something absolutely ridiculous. And just recently, she made contact again. Now, the interesting part about that is that I was driving my car one day and I kept thinking about her very strongly. And I kept thinking about her husband and kept thinking about her. And it was a bit of a grieving process about that relationship because we been friends for so we'd fallen out about something so silly. And I knew that we'd speak again, but it was just it always kind of hurt because I just thought, we shouldn't be like this. We're like sisters, we shouldn't be not talking. And there's a song that we used to play together as children in my bedroom when we were growing up, and it was Billy Joel, In the Middle of the Night. And we used to sit there and we used to both love it. And we used to sit there and write down the lyrics to it and stop the cassette, write down the lyrics, play it again, write down the lyrics, because that's how we did it back then. And so I'm driving on, I keep hitting over the space of a week. I'd heard this song, just uncannily so many times. And I thought, do you know what? Am I waiting for them to call me? Do I make contact? Like, what's happened? I don't know what to do. And about a week after of continuously hearing this song, and after not speaking to each other for about 3 years, she messaged me and she said, can we talk? I've just found out I've got breast cancer. And I said, absolutely. And I called her like instantly, like straight away. And we spoke for, a long time. And, she just said, I can't. And luckily she's okay. She's gone through a lot to be clear. But that was last year, at the end of last year until now, and she's okay. So, we made contact. She was like, I couldn't, not knowing what was unclear of the future, I couldn't have our relationship like this being, I wanted to make amends with it. And I was like, of course, so we had a good cry. We had, we had a good talk. And I told her the story about how I kept hearing the Billy Joel song and how I just felt like I knew that she was going to make contact. And it was funny because then I started thinking about the quantum entanglement theory of like the cell, like you're always connected to someone, even if you're on the other ends of the earth. And this is how also like energy can work through doing therapy through a Zoom, like the energy is energy. But that was another kind of poignant moment again of thinking these are not coincidence. These are signs that it's all meant to happen, kind of that way.
It's a good story, really, and I'm glad she's okay. If they can communicate and give us signs from the other side, our souls are powerful. Why not be able to communicate on some level when we're alive? Why not? Or maybe, her deepest feelings of wanting to be reconnecting in yours too. And who knows, somebody in the other side, Billy Joel, let's get him in the middle of the night. Who knows how it all works. But it just goes to show that we are more powerful than we know. And we can play around with this. My last guest was talking about the phenomenal things that was happening with her when she was praying. And it's like, like she would ask for something and just really, really sit and pray for it. And then let nature take its course. And then just like that scorpion on the lady's arm, there would be the person or the situation or whatever. So I think we have a lot more capability than we know.
Oh, I totally agree with you there. And I think it's just, but it's got to come from a good intention. Like you say, you can pray and you can manifest, absolutely. But it's the intention and the energy that you're doing that with. I mean, you can be really nice to someone, but not like them. So that energy is fake, right? So
Right.
energy has to be pure. You can say everything's great, but your life is crumbling in the background. It's, the actual energy has to be pure and intentional with the best purpose possible. So yes, I think our brains are capable of a lot, but and again, can everyone access that? I think once you get on that journey, of course, but not everyone is supposed to be on that journey either, I don't think. So I guess that's what makes the world go round, right?
At
Everyone's
different times in our life, I would never have been ready for this 30 years ago. I was anti-afterlife. I thought people that spoke this language were crazy. I'd laugh at them. I was really quite
right.
mean, not openly, but inside I knew better.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
here we are today. I thought it'd be the last messenger for this. Gemma, do you have any other stories written on that piece of paper?
I've got one more.
Okay, let's bring it on. And then I'll ask you for a few more words and yeah, let you start your day.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, so the last one was actually this was before even my mum died. This is really a long time ago. This is when I was probably about, oh no, she had passed. Maybe only just recently though. Anyway, I was round about the age of 20. Maybe 21. I don't know. I'd gone to Portugal on a holiday. I was living in the UK then. Yeah, my mum had passed. And I was about 22 and we've gone to Portugal on holiday. I was with my ex-husband. I've been married before. It's another story. There's been lots of things that happen in my life. We've only just touched the surface. So we were on holiday and I had this overwhelming feeling of dread and I couldn't get rid of it. And I really just wanted to enjoy my holiday basically because Portugal was such a beautiful country and I just wanted to have a good time. But I could not get over how terrible I was feeling. And I kept looking at it and I kept crying actually. And I was like, I'm depressed. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, I just could not understand what was going on. Am I grieving? Like, I've not been like this. Like, why is it coming out now? All these questions. And I just thought to myself, someone's died. Again, jumping to the worst case scenario. And I was like, someone's died. I was phoning up like best friends, my sister. I was making sure everyone was okay. I was getting very anxious. The anxiety was going through the roof. And I thought, why am I feeling like this? And I couldn't figure out why. So I tried to push it to the back of my head and forget about it. And I got back to the UK, and that was when we were told that a friend of ours had been hit by a truck in Africa and died. Yeah. So what's interesting about that story is that I wasn't best friends with this the young man that died. His nickname is Crispy, and we used to get on really well. Yeah, he's such a character, just a beautiful soul. And he was a friend of my ex-husband's. He used to work together, but I did know him, and we had like a nice friendship because we kind of understood each other a little bit, like kind of childlike, and it's cute. So and the interesting thing about Crispy is, even though obviously I'm not related to him and we only had a very brief kind of friendship, is that he's come through quite a few times when I've gone to like mediumship like stuff, in readings. And I don't often go to mediumship readings, but when I just like group ones, and he's come through, and it's been really funny because the first time he came through was they described his character and I felt his energy straight away. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's actually, that's Crispy. And he'd come through a couple of other times and other things too. But this one was particularly interesting because the medium in question was saying she got it right that he'd been hit by a large, vehicle. And she said, he's playing the guitar. She goes, but he's not. And she was doing all these funny movements. And I said, well, and she was like, what's that about? She goes, because he's saying he can't play it, but he's playing the guitar. And I said, well, he was an air guitar champion. So
Wow.
and I said, that's spot on. Like, that's crazy. I was like, yeah, that's him. Like, he used to be, I used to go into competitions for like air guitar. It's just the funniest thing. And I was like, that is just so him to a teen. I don't know his family. So, yeah, I couldn't relay these messages to them to get them through. I mean, I have reached out to one person, but I think they think that this is they're just not open to it, and that's fine. So maybe if someone hears this, then it will reach it, but reach them. So yeah, that was a lovely story because I just felt like, his energy is so still there, and like, and he comes through, which is really, really playful and just everything that I used to remember,
I have never heard of air guitar championship, so I think that's great. And even if his family doesn't hear it, I know there's somebody listening and watching right now that just gives that evidence that we go on and our personality survives. Gemma, I wanted to ask you just one last thing about your grief therapy, root cause therapy. You're a practitioner. Not everyone is going to be able to book a session with you. However, is there one tool that you could give people that are listening right now, something that they could leave this episode with and start looking at for themselves, maybe provide a little relief or something? One little gift you can leave with us?
Well, for anyone that is grieving and is in, that in deep in, especially with new grief, deep in grief, first of all, be kind to yourself. You really got to just be kind to yourself, really acknowledge what you're feeling. Please don't be ashamed by any of the feelings. You might feel relief, you might feel guilt, you might feel shame. Don't acknowledge what you're feeling. Don't push them aside. Talk to a friend, talk to someone that you can trust, and if you can't reach out to and receive professional support, then I know that there's in Australia, we've got like griefline.org.au. That's like a free organization. It actually nearly got shut down because it didn't get enough government funding, but they've managed to keep it going, which is great. But like, again, I also like a piece of advice, and just like an analogy is like the cut hand analogy. If you slice your hand, and you look after your hand well, and you bandage it up, you use clean water, you look after it, like the body knows what to do. It will heal in time, it will get better. But if you don't tend to that cut wound, and you're not in the right environment, and you're using dirty water or you're using unclean bandages, that wound will get infected, right? So liken that to your emotional state. If you don't look after yourself and be kind to yourself, you need to be in an environment that is going to be reflective of the journey and the path that you want to be on, so yeah, so try to, it's hard, but just try and reach out to people, look after yourself, and really try, like, get onto that. You can go down rabbit holes. All you have to do is start Googling. So you'll start looking into like, worth and self-sabotage, and just recognize how you're feeling, so you can get tools that are good for you, that work for you, to get you out of that like funk, if you like. Because different things work for different people. Breath work, amazing for so much. There's so much that can be released in breathwork sessions, and that can just be, you can start off by finding a free one online, and then start finding a practitioner. There's lots of things that can be done with energy through spinal or meditation. Find what works for you. But really, I think that the most important thing is to not feel ashamed or embarrassed about how you're feeling, and there's no shame or embarrassment in wanting to get help. And the first thing you can do is to just do a search online, or reach out to a friend. Just start the conversation. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Would you tell
Welcome.
everyone how to reach you again, your Instagram and your website?
Sure. So it's my name, gemmakyriakou.com. And my Instagram is very active. So I'm there. That's Gemma_Kyriakou. So Kyriakou is spelled Kyriakou. And Gemma with a G, by the way. Yeah. So that's how you can find me. And of course, any questions, anyone's got any questions about, what I do, please feel free to reach out.
And they can reach out through your website or
Absolutely.
Instagram.
You can reach
All
out
right.
through my website. There's an email address there that you'll find. And you can DM me through Instagram as well, and we can start the conversation.
Thank you for that. And anyone who's watching or listening, in the description of this episode, you can scroll down and you can just click and go right there. Well, Gemma, it has been great having you as our guest today. Thank you.
No, thank you. No, I really appreciate it. And I really hope people do find comfort in these stories. For me, it feels very normal now, like to receive these signs and receive these messages. It feels very normal. But I guess if it hadn't, I'm used to thinking about them and recollecting them. But there's so much that happens every day that I find like little coincidences. So just they're there. The signs are there. And I hope it brings some people some comfort today. I really do.
I am sure it has. It will. This was wonderful. I know it was a great hour that I got to spend with you. So I know other people will enjoy it as well. And for our listener or our viewer, thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know your time is valuable, and the fact that you tuned into this, I appreciate it. Don't forget, my website is wedon'tdie.com. So much going on there. If you want to take a medium class or you want to come to our free Sunday gathering, it's worldwide. Folks, come and join us. There's a medium demonstration included. Loved ones from all over the world come through. You get to see just how close they are. And also, it's very empowering for living our life. And it's a community, even though I don't know if we're ever going to meet these people all over the world. We're very real. We've got a chat box going. And I know there's lots of smiles. So everything's at wedon'tdie.com. In closing, I'm Sandra Champlain. I'm always so happy to be your host on We Don't Die. I do believe that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is important. So pay attention to those gut instincts, those synchronicities. Put out those requests to the universe coming from that loving intent. Pay attention to making a difference for others, and you cannot go wrong. So I really want to thank you for listening or for watching, and we'll see you again soon.